Greater than, the entire courtroom burst into laughter when the little black boy shouted, "Let go of my mom and I'll make you stand." But by the end of that day, no one was laughing anymore. Not the judge, not the lawyers, not even the man who swore he'd never walk again. Stay tuned till the end, you'll never forget what happened next. And if you believe in miracles, in strength that defies everything, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story will touch your soul. The courtroom smelled of polished wood, old paper, and quiet tension. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and the afternoon sun cut narrow blades of light across the benches. In the center sat a woman with cuffs biting her wrists, Marilyn Harris, a nurse accused of theft and negligence after a car accident left a wealthy man, Richard Cole, paralyzed. On the prosecution table gleamed thick folders of evidence. On the defense side, a public attorney wiped sweat from his brow. But everyone's eyes kept drifting to the back row, to the small boy in an oversized sweater, gripping a torn notebook and staring straight at the judge. He was barely 9, his shoes scuffed, his face solemn, his name Elijah Harris. And though the world saw only a child, those who knew him whispered he had an uncanny stillness, a way of looking at people that made them forget his age. When the bailiff called order, the murmurs died. The judge, a tall white-haired man named Judge Monroe, adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Harris, you are charged with criminal negligence resulting in permanent injury to Mr. Cole. How do you plead?" Marilyn's voice trembled. "Not guilty, Your Honor. I tried to help." Her eyes searched the benches until they found Elijah. His chin lifted just slightly, and she exhaled. The prosecutor, a sharp-tongued man named Arthur Keene, rose. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about irresponsibility disguised as compassion. The defendant abandoned protocol, endangered a life, and cost a man his ability to walk." He pointed toward the wheelchair near the front. Richard Cole sat there, impeccably dressed, expression carved from stone. Keene's voice boomed. "She calls herself a nurse, but her recklessness turned a father and entrepreneur into a prisoner in his own body." Gasps fluttered around the room. Elijah clenched his fists. He remembered the night of the storm, his mother running out of their car to pull someone from a wreck, shouting for him to call 911. The man she saved was the same one now staring coldly from that wheelchair. She'd used her coat to stop his bleeding until the ambulance came. The next morning police had arrested her for unauthorized medical interference. "Objection." The defense attorney tried to sound firm, but his voice cracked. "Speculation, Your Honor." Monroe sighed. "Overruled." Arthur Keene smiled thinly. Marilyn lowered her gaze, and Elijah's small body trembled. He wanted to scream that it wasn't fair. That his mom was a hero, not a criminal. But his teacher had once told him, the truth doesn't need to scream, it needs to stand. He didn't yet know what that meant, but he felt it burning inside him now. As witnesses paraded across the stand, paramedics, traffic officers, even the convenience store clerk who'd filmed part of the crash, the story twisted further against Marilyn. Each word dug her deeper into guilt. By the time the video played, showing her kneeling beside the mangled car with hands slick with blood, the jury's faces were tight with judgment. Elijah couldn't take it. He whispered, "Mom." She looked back, tears shining, mouthing, "It's okay, baby." But it wasn't. Because he saw the moment on screen they didn't. The flicker of light, the faint movement in Richard Cole's fingers before the paramedics arrived. Nobody else noticed. But Elijah had watched it again and again the night before, replaying the clip on his cracked phone. The man had moved, his hand twitched, his chest rose, before the EMTs even touched him. Something wasn't right. When court adjourned for recess, reporters swarmed. Keene basked in cameras. "This is an open and shut case," he told them. "The evidence is irrefutable." In the background, Elijah tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mom, I saw his hand move." She smiled weakly. "Sweetheart, don't, no, really." He moved before the doctors even came. She brushed his cheek. "You have such a big imagination." Then she was led away by guards. That night Elijah sat in their small motel room, staring at the old notebook he used for sketches. On the cover he wrote, "To make him stand." Inside he drew the courtroom, his mom, and the man in the wheelchair. Under the drawing he wrote in crooked letters, "He can walk." Next morning, when court reconvened, the boy slipped into the front row. As the bailiff called order, Richard Cole wheeled himself forward. Elijah noticed again, the man's legs weren't as lifeless as they seemed. A faint muscle twitch rippled when he adjusted his jacket. Elijah's pulse quickened. During cross-examination, his mother's lawyer tried a timid question. "Mr. Cole, can you feel anything below your waist?" Cole answered smoothly, no. Not even tingling, pressure. Nothing. The lawyer nodded, defeated. But Elijah saw Cole's fingers curl subtly on the armrest. Lying. And then came the moment that would echo across every news channel in America. As the judge prepared to close the session for the day, Elijah suddenly stood. His voice cracked but carried through the stunned silence. Let go of my mom, and I'll make you stand. Gasps burst around the courtroom. The judge's gavel slammed. Order. Sit down, young man. But Elijah didn't move. I'm not lying, Your Honor. He's not paralyzed. He's pretending. Laughter rippled across the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Arthur Keene smirked. Your Honor, perhaps we should allow this medical prodigy to enlighten us. The crowd chuckled. Elijah's small hands shook. Mom saved him. He moved before the ambulance came. I saw it. Cole's jaw tightened. The judge softened. Son, I know you're upset, but, please. If I'm wrong, I'll leave forever. But if I'm right, you let my mom go. The courtroom hushed. Cameras zoomed in. Judge Monroe hesitated, torn between protocol and curiosity. Finally, Mr. Cole, would you humor the boy? Just to settle this disruption. Cole forced a chuckle. If it ends this circus, fine. Elijah stepped forward, heart hammering. Stand up, he whispered. Cole laughed. Impossible. The boy's eyes gleamed. I'm not talking to your legs. I'm talking to your guilt. The laughter died. Elijah's words echoed like thunder. He pointed. You know you can. You've been lying because you hate what happened, that my mom saw the real you before anyone else did. You weren't paralyzed that night. You were ashamed. Enough. Arthur Keene snapped. This is ridiculous. But Cole's hands were trembling. The boy walked closer. Stand up. And then, before anyone could blink, Cole's foot twitched. A faint sound escaped his lips. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. The judge froze mid-sentence. Cole gripped the sides of the wheelchair, veins standing out on his neck. His left leg shifted, then his right. The man who'd sworn under oath he couldn't feel anything suddenly rose halfway before collapsing back, sobbing. The courtroom erupted. Some shouted miracle, others fraud. Elijah ran to his mother as guards rushed forward. She fell to her knees, wrapping him in her arms. It's okay, baby, it's okay. But it wasn't over. The impossible had just begun. Outside, the video went viral within hours, #LetGoofMyMom trending worldwide. Reporters called Elijah the boy who made a man walk. But deeper forces stirred behind those headlines. Corporate cover-ups, medical bribes, and a truth that would threaten everything Elijah thought he knew about justice, faith, and his own family. Because somewhere behind the laughter that day, someone wanted him silenced. For a few seconds after Richard Cole's legs twitched, nobody in the courtroom breathed. The old clock on the wall ticked so loud it felt like thunder. Then the world exploded. Reporters shouted. Camera flashes stabbed through the air. The judge banged his gavel until his hand shook. Order, order, he barked, but nobody listened. The impossible had just happened. A boy's words had done what medicine couldn't, or at least, that's what it looked like. Elijah stood frozen beside his mother, staring at the man who had sworn he could never stand again. Cole sat trembling, sweat rolling down his temple, hands clamped on his thighs as if afraid of what his body had just done. The prosecutor's mouth hung open, his confidence shattered. That was a reflex. He stammered, looking to the judge, to anyone who could make sense of it. But the crowd had already decided otherwise. They'd seen a miracle, and once people see one, logic doesn't stand a chance. The judge finally called recess. As guards escorted Marilyn out, Elijah felt the world blur around him, reporters calling his name, strangers cheering, hands reaching out to touch his shoulder. One voice rose above the chaos. Boy, how did you do that? But Elijah didn't answer. He only clung to his mother's hand and whispered, told you I'd make him stand. She smiled through tears, shaking her head in disbelief. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed by cameras. A journalist from New York shouted, Elijah, people are calling you a miracle worker. How does it feel? The boy frowned. I just told the truth. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. By evening, every major network had his face on screen. Headlines screamed, child commands paralyzed man to walk, and he does. Others were harsher. Publicity stunt or divine intervention. That night, back in their motel room, Marilyn watched the news replay the moment again and again. The clip of Elijah pointing, shouting those words, then the man rising. She turned off the TV, covering her face. What happens now, baby? She whispered. Elijah didn't answer. He sat by the window, watching headlights streak past, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air. Something about Cole's expression when he fell back into the wheelchair hadn't been fear, it was panic. Like a man caught lying. The next morning, before the hearing resumed, 2 black SUVs pulled up outside the courthouse. Men in suits stepped out, their movements too coordinated to be journalists. One of them, tall, pale, with a scar along his cheek, whispered something to the prosecutor. Arthur Keene's face went pale. He nodded stiffly and walked inside without a word. Elijah noticed from across the street. "Mom, who are those men?" he asked. Marilyn frowned. "Probably reporters, honey." But her eyes told another story. Inside, the judge's demeanor was colder. The gavel struck once. "Due to recent developments, this court will order an independent medical evaluation of Mr. Cole's condition." The crowd murmured. Cole's lawyer leapt up. "Your Honor, my client's paralysis is well documented, then the test will confirm it," the judge interrupted sharply. He turned toward Elijah. "Young man, what you did yesterday caused quite a storm. For your own safety, I advise you and your mother to avoid further statements to the press." Safety. The word hung heavy. When the court recessed again, Marilyn was approached by a woman in a gray coat, calm voice, steel eyes. "Mrs. Harris," she said, flashing a badge. "FBI, Agent Mendez. We need to talk." They led her and Elijah to a quiet conference room. "We believe your son may have unintentionally exposed something larger than a courtroom miracle," the agent said. "Richard Cole isn't just a businessman. He's the CEO of Courtroom Medical, one of the biggest private healthcare suppliers in the country." Marilyn blinked. "What does that have to do with us?" Mendez leaned forward. "Everything. His company's been under investigation for insurance fraud, and if he's faking paralysis, it ties directly to multi-million-dollar claims. Your son's outburst might have just blown the lid off the case." Marilyn's hand flew to her mouth. "You mean, he was pretending?" Mendez nodded slowly. "We can't prove it yet. But if that boy's right, he just uncovered one of the biggest frauds in state history." Elijah looked from one adult to another, confusion and fear battling in his small chest. "So, my mom's free?" Mendez hesitated. "Not yet, but she might be." Outside, reporters still swarmed the steps. Arthur Keene had vanished, his office, temporarily closed. Meanwhile, Courtroom Medical issued a statement claiming the movement was a stress-induced spasm. But the internet didn't believe it. People had seen Elijah's eyes, his calm voice, the conviction of a child who spoke truth without agenda. Hashtags flooded social media. #StandUpCole, #ElijahTheHeller, #JusticeForMarlon. By evening, the motel phone rang. Marilyn answered, expecting her lawyer. But the voice was unfamiliar, low, steady, dangerous. "Tell your boy to keep his mouth shut," it said. "People get hurt when they play hero." Then the line went dead. That night, someone knocked on their door. 3 slow taps. Marilyn froze. "Don't move," she whispered, grabbing Elijah's hand. The knock came again, louder. She crept to the peephole, and exhaled. It was Agent Mendez. "Pack your things," she said. "You're coming with us." They drove through the rain to a safe house outside the city. Mendez explained everything. Cole's company had falsified paralysis claims for months, using staged accidents to drain insurance funds. But no one had proof until Elijah's confrontation. "You're the reason we can move," Mendez told him. "But it also means you're a target." Days turned into a blur of interviews, medical tests, and guarded hallways. Cole's condition became a national spectacle. Every test came back inconsistent. One day he had reflexes, the next he didn't. Doctors whispered off record, "It doesn't add up." Meanwhile, Marilyn's charges were quietly suspended, pending further investigation. But Elijah wasn't celebrating. He couldn't stop thinking about that day in court, how he'd felt something in the air when he told Cole to stand. It wasn't magic, not exactly. It was like truth had its own gravity, pulling lies apart. And now, as he lay awake in the dark, he heard a whisper in his memory, his father's voice, from years before he died. "Son, the world breaks the honest first. But if you keep standing, someday the world will have to stand with you." 3 nights later, the impossible happened again. A security guard burst into the safe house, shouting for Mendez. "Ma'am, you need to see this." They rushed to the TV. News anchors stammered through breaking headlines. Courtroom CEO Richard Cole found walking into hospital. Marilyn gasped. Walking. The screen showed shaky footage. Cole, pale and furious, pushing past cameras as he walked into a building with canes. His lawyer followed, shouting no comments. Reporters screamed questions. How are you walking again? Was it a hoax? The image froze on his face, defiance, fear, and something darker. Mendez muttered, he's making his move. And that's when Elijah said softly, he's coming for us. Outside, thunder rolled through the night. Somewhere deep in the city, lights burned late in Courtroom headquarters. Behind tinted glass, Richard Cole stood tall, no wheelchair in sight, staring at a photo of the boy who'd ruined his empire. You want to make me stand, he whispered, then watch how fast I make you fall. The storm outside mirrored the one gathering in Elijah's chest. Rain hammered the safehouse windows while Agent Mendez paced, phone pressed to her ear, murmuring updates to unseen superiors. Marilyn sat clutching a mug of untouched coffee, her face pale and tired. The news looped again and again on TV, Richard Cole walking, the world calling it either divine healing or a publicity stunt. But Elijah saw the fear in the man's eyes during that broadcast. Cole wasn't reborn, he was cornered. Mendez hung up. He's moving fast, she said. Cole's company just filed a lawsuit claiming you conspired to defame him. He's turning the miracle into a weapon. Marilyn laughed without humor. He ruined my life once. Now he wants to finish it. Elijah looked up. What can we do? Fight, Mendez said. But this time, we fight smart. She opened a laptop showing encrypted files, insurance records, doctored videos, offshore accounts, fragments of corruption linking Cole to dozens of staged accidents. We've been digging for months. Your moment in court gave us the key. But we need one more thing to prove it, the original footage from that crash. Marilyn frowned. The security camera feed. Yes, it was wiped the next morning. We think Cole's people still have the backup server in his headquarters. Elijah's heart pounded. Then we have to get it. Mendez sighed. Kid, this isn't a movie. That building's tighter than a bank vault. He met her gaze, voice steady. You said truth has to stand, right? Then let's make it stand. That night, the plan formed. Mendez would pull the warrant. Marilyn would distract the press by agreeing to a live interview. Elijah, small, unnoticed, would slip inside Courtroom Medical with a backup drive Mendez handed him. At dawn, the city was gray and restless. Cole arrived at his headquarters flanked by bodyguards, his limp exaggerated for cameras. Miracles happen, he told reporters, smiling thinly. I thank God and my doctors for my recovery. Behind him, digital screens flashed Courtroom, standing strong. What no one saw was the child crouched near the loading dock, hoodie soaked with rain, waiting for a security shift change. Elijah's heart thudded like drums. He whispered, for you, Mom, and darted through the open door. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. The place smelled of antiseptic and lies. He moved down corridors lined with framed photos of smiling patients, advertisements for compassion masking greed. Mendez's voice crackled in his earpiece. 3rd floor, East Wing. Look for server room C. He crept upstairs, ducking behind carts and corners until he reached a steel door labeled authorized personnel only. The access panel blinked red. He slipped the badge Mendez had given him, stolen from a suspended technician, through the reader. The light turned green. The door hissed open. Rows of servers glowed like sleeping giants. Elijah approached the console, plugged in the drive, and whispered, please work. Progress bars danced across the screen. Folder after folder scrolled past until one caught his eye. Accident_log_0427. He opened it. Video thumbnails of that stormy night filled the display. He clicked one. On the monitor, his mother appeared, running toward the crashed car. Lightning flashed. She pulled the door open. Inside, Cole struggled, legs moving, kicking. Clear as day. Elijah gasped. He could move. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Richard Cole stood in the doorway. No wheelchair, no limp, just a man, tall and furious. I knew you'd come, he said softly. Curious thing about miracles, they make people believe in anything. Elijah's mouth went dry. You lied. Cole smiled. I protected what's mine. Do you know what happens when a company loses faith? Stocks crash. People lose jobs. Sometimes you need a villain to keep the lights on. You destroyed my mom's life. She was collateral. Elijah's pulse roared in his ears. The truth's right here, he said, pointing to the screen. Cole stepped forward. Delete it, and I'll forget you exist. No. Cole's voice hardened. You think courage means shouting in court? Courage is surviving power. He reached for the console. Elijah moved first, yanking the drive free and darting past him. Alarms blared. Cole shouted, chasing him down the hall. Give it back. Elijah sprinted through the corridors, adrenaline burning. Guards appeared at the end of the hall. He ducked into a maintenance shaft, clutching the drive to his chest. The vents rattled as footsteps thundered above. Through a grate, he saw Cole limping again for the cameras gathering outside, pretending once more. The hypocrisy fueled him. He whispered, "You're going to stand for real this time." He dropped into a stairwell and burst onto the rainy street just as Mendez's car screeched to the curb. "Got it," she shouted. Elijah nodded, soaked and shaking. She slammed the gas. Behind them, Cole's guards swarmed. Bullets shattered the air, security or worse. Mendez zigzagged through traffic until the skyline opened to the courthouse steps. Dash dash dash. Inside the courtroom, chaos erupted once again as Mendez handed the drive to the judge. The crowd hushed as the video played. On screen, Richard Cole's legs moved, seconds before Marilyn arrived. Gasps filled the chamber. Cole's face drained of color. Judge Monroe's gavel came down like thunder. "Mr. Cole, you are under arrest for perjury, insurance fraud, and obstruction of justice." Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. Marilyn covered her face, sobbing with relief. Elijah reached for her hand. "We stood, Mom." Cole was led away, shouting, "You think this changes anything? The world still believes what I built." Maybe he was right, but truth has its own momentum. Within days, Celestone collapsed. Employees testified. The fraudulent claims unraveled. And amidst the wreckage, one image dominated every headline: the little boy who made a liar stand. Dash dash dash. Weeks later, under a calmer sky, Marilyn and Elijah sat outside their rebuilt home. Reporters were gone, the noise replaced by quiet birdsong. Mendez visited one last time. "The bureau's closing the case," she said. "You both did more than we could have hoped." Marilyn smiled. "We just told the truth." Mendez looked at Elijah. "You did more than that. You made the world listen." When she left, Elijah wandered to the porch, watching clouds drift. "Mom," he said softly. "Yes, baby. Do you think he'll ever really stand again?" She thought about it. "Maybe. But that's not our burden anymore." Elijah nodded. "Then I'll stand for people who can't." The camera of your mind pulls back. The quiet house, the sunrise, a mother and son silhouetted by light. Words fade in across the screen. Greater than, sometimes standing isn't about legs. It's about truth. Then Elijah's voice, older, echoes, "If you believe the truth still matters, don't forget to subscribe."